couple of other things. Everywhere I go, I look at Canadians with fear in their eyes. You ask why we're in politics, why Ujjal's in politics, why Soup's in politics, why Hetty's in politics. It's to take the fear out of Canadian life wherever we can. Take the fear out. And I see fear in the eyes of Canadians who think, I've played by the rules, and I don't know whether I'll have a secure pension when I retire. There's fear in the eyes of Canadians, not in their 50s, not in their 60s, but in their 40s and 30s now. How are we going to make sure we have a dignified retirement? The answer has to be, we've got to put, this is what liberals have always done, put ground under your feet. Take the fear out of Canadian life and make sure there's a Canada pension plan you can count on when you retire. Canadians ask me, how was it that we lost that seat on the Security Council of the United Nations? How did that happen? Every prime minister since 1945 went up to the United Nations and says Canada would like to apply. And every prime minister has succeeded except one. We know his name. We know the man's name. And that has become a symbol to many Canadians of something else that worries them about their country. The sense that we've lost that place of honor and respect in the world community. Because we pursued a foreign policy that other countries think doesn't reflect the heart and soul of our country, which is peace, order, and good government. And above all, democracy. Well, you can't stand for democracy overseas, folks, if you do not practice it at home. Of democracy, we're going to get to the questions any minute, but just imagine, you see, we're in a very odd election in which it is actually, he might get away with it unless we get angry about this. He does not take questions from Canadians. He hasn't taken an unscripted, unprompted question from a Canadian in 5 years. He's a prime minister of the country, or he was, right? He doesn't take questions from Canadians. Because the questions will be tough. Mr. Harper, why have you decided to spend $30 billion on an untendered purchase of fighter aircraft? Answer that one for me. That's why he doesn't take questions at meetings, because he doesn't have an answer that Canadians can respect or understand. Why, Mr. Harper? Why, Mr. Harper, do you propose to spend $13 billion constructing mega prisons? Why are you doing that when California has definitively proved that that is a really dumb thing to do? Because you know where you end up? You know where you end up in California, a state I respect and we all like? You end up in a situation, if you build those prisons and do mandatory minimums, you end up in a truly crazy place, where you end up having more prisoners than college students. Is that what you want, Canada? Is that what you want? I don't think so. I don't think so. And then you have to explain, if Mr. Harper allowed questions at a public meeting, why are you giving the most profitable banks, insurance companies, and oil companies in the country a $6 billion tax break at a time when ordinary Canadian families are having a tough time? That's a difficult question for a prime minister to answer, because it's saying to the ordinary Canadian family, take a number, step to the back of the line. I got to buy some jets, I got to build some jails, and I got to give my buddies a break. And if you come back in 5 years, I might just have something for you. That's what he said to the Canadian public throughout this election. And it's not good enough. People are seeing, you're here tonight, not for my blue eyes, but because you want a change of government. Some people are taking a close look at the NDP, which is their right. indeed their duty. The only problem is you really ought to look at the fine print. I commend to you the costing table of the NDP platform. I know as diligent citizens you don't make any choice on election day unless you've looked at the costing table, which is on page 106 down at the bottom in small type. But to save those of you who have busy lives, let me tell you what's on the costing table. It's a scary sight. He wants to fund all his programs with a $3.6 billion energy tax, effectively, which he can't get into operation in the first year anyway, but he's already booked the money. You see, if you've been in permanent opposition, that's the kind of funny stuff you can do. But if you've been in government, you would never dare try that on the Canadian people, because it isn't the truth. It isn't honest. It's not telling you where the money comes from. And you can't have an honest election debate unless you tell Canadians exactly where the money's from. Now look here. Here's a contrast. Here's a contrast. This here is the Liberal platform. The Liberal platform has a costing table. Now, there will be an exam tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, and you've got to pass. If you're Liberals going door to door, you've got to know this costing table. My point here is we have made no promise that we cannot fully fund. That's very important. We cannot raise taxes on Canadian families. It is too tough out there. We cannot do that. We will not do that. But we have to do the one thing that, remember what I was saying about equality is so important. We have got to make sure that every single Canadian young person who wants to go to college or university gets to do so with a learning passport. We've got to make sure there is early learning and childcare for every Canadian family. We have got to help Canadian families reduce their energy costs in the home and become more environmentally sustainable. We have got to make sure that when mom and dad get sick, you can take time off of work to look after your loved one in the home. We have got to guarantee a 6% escalator in investment in public health in this country. We've got to do those things. Those aren't things we might do. Those are things we must do to sustain the standard of living of the middle-class family, and we can do it without raising your taxes by pegging the corporate tax rate at 18%. Okay, that's how it's done. Here's one final thing before we get to questions, and I'm looking forward to the questions immensely because I have no idea what's coming at me. It's this. This really is a contest between hope and fear, as I've said throughout the election. All of the Liberal platform is based on hope, on the idea that what we stand for as a party is the equality of hope. The idea that everybody should be able to realize their dreams in the society, and that the success of the whole society depends on making sure that everybody gets to realize those dreams. When people are excluded, when people are left out, when people are homeless, when people are hungry, when people can't get an education, we all suffer. The key to our economic success in my lifetime has been that commitment to the equality of hope. There is one party that has stood through fire and hail and shot and shell behind that idea, and that is the Liberal Party of Canada. And let me tell you that we are up against the politics of fear. Give me a majority or the sky will fall. Give me a majority or there'll be chaos in the land. Give me a majority or that terrible, frightening, horrible Mr. Ignatieff will take power. You know, I'm not perfect, but I don't think I'm scary. I do not think I'm a scary guy. And he's trying to scare Canadians about me. He's trying to scare Canadians about a party that has enjoyed the confidence of Canadians in government for a generation. So let's get real. May the 2nd is a choice of government. What government shall we have? What moderate, practical, fiscally responsible government shall we have for our country? What government shall we have that puts hope ahead of fear? I think the choice is clear on the 2nd of May. Thank you for listening to me.